Hi there, everybody. Welcome to a bonus edition of the Gary Neville Podcast. We did one on Thursday, but we're here when both the top two have played on the Saturday, and we've got plenty to talk about. Let's talk about what we've seen here, first of all, Gary. Manchester City, it wasn't perhaps as smooth as 4-0 sounds, but they got the job done in some style at the end.
They got the job done. It definitely wasn't a 4-0 game. I don't think those City players will come off and feel like they were comfortable all the way through the game. It was tough work for them, particularly the first half. I thought Leeds played really well. We didn't know whether actually Leeds changed their system off the back of losing Cooper, which was a big blow for them. We feared the worst, didn't we? You know, just losing the main man defensively. We saw that record. I think it was 3 goals they concede on average when he doesn't play, 1.4 when he does.
Yeah, the last 486 minutes he'd played, they'd conceded one
goal. Yeah, so we don't know whether they were going to play a back five anyway, but there's certainly disruption. We know that because of obviously losing Liam Cooper. So I thought Leeds played brilliantly in that first half. Big moment in the first 2 or 3 minutes, and you sometimes think, are you overreacting as a commentator, co-commentator, when you say what a big moment it is? It's only 3 minutes in, but you just know that that was the only time they really got through on goal. I mean, Gelhardt had a chance at the end, but that was at 3-0. It was a massive moment, that, because the fans were up for it here today, Leeds fans. They were actually magnificent to the end in terms of their singing. There were problems with the cards that they were holding up before the game and the paper, because that was just ridiculous that they continued to allow just to chuck it on at players all the way through, particularly Grealish in that second half. But there were problems for City in that first half. Without De Bruyne, without Silva in midfield, they lost control, and Leeds were matching them at times for possession. So it was awkward, and I thought at half-time Leeds deserved to go in. Losing Dallas just before half-time was a big moment, but coming back to City, these two teams, what we witnessed a few years ago, I always never remember the year, it was 3 seasons ago, wasn't it, when they were going sort of neck and neck to the end and they didn't make a mistake. And I couldn't believe it because I was brought up on them, witnessed so many title run-ins where our manager was always right, would say, don't worry, they'll make a mistake on the way in. They always did, or we always did. They don't make mistakes.
No, it's amazing. Every time we go through, it's the status quo again, isn't it? But we're nearer the finishing line, and every game where you get nearer the finishing line, if you're in front, you're going to win.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing that actually City have done tonight, which is massively impressive, but they make it look easy, is that when we were up against a team going for a title and they played before us, we always wanted to play first. And when Liverpool have gone and done what they did at lunchtime today and won 1-0 at Newcastle after a Villarreal game in midweek and all the games they've had recently, you're thinking that switches the pressure to City. But you never really get the impression that these two teams feel that pressure because of their dominance, because of their class, because of their composure, because of their rhythm. Everything that they have, they just seem to be in control. They seem to be enjoying it. You know, they seem to be enjoying the sort of this tussle. Whereas I think when we were going through these tussles with Arsenal, or whether it be Chelsea or whoever it was over the sort of Blackburn in the sort of mid-90s, it always felt like a fight. And Roy Keane uses the word war sometimes about football, but it felt like that. But this doesn't feel like that. Even when they played against each other and then that brilliant 2-2 draw, now, Liverpool did very well to come back in. There were sort of hugs at the end, and it's a very pleasant, respectful run-in. But you cannot deny the excellence of both of these clubs and both of these teams at this moment in time, because it is a standard that we've not seen before in terms of consistency at the end of a season. And look, you could throw at it that, well, in other seasons, teams have sort of gone on these types of runs towards the end. But these teams are in the Champions League, they're in the FA Cups, they're in the Carabao Cups, they're playing tons of matches, and they're still doing it. You know, in '99, the most impressive thing for us was that I think we had a quarter-final FA Cup replay, we had a semi-final FA Cup replay. We played against, I think, Liverpool, Chelsea, Newcastle, Arsenal, all the top teams on all the way through in the FA Cup. We played all the top teams in the Champions League. Our group that year was Barcelona and Bayern Munich and Brøndby, and then we played Inter Milan, Juventus, the best in Europe, and then Bayern Munich again. These teams are doing it now. They're doing it. We're witnessing what would be that standard of football that we had in '99. And Liverpool could do it, but for the fact that these lot here don't make a mistake. Now, they have got some tough away games. They've got Wolves and West Ham. The big thing for City is that, I called it a monstrous game in midweek. This is an event. Manchester City versus Real Madrid on Wednesday. The one last week was, but this on Wednesday is like a heavyweight boxing clash of the century. You have one every few years whereby you've got this historic club that have basically got this inbuilt resilience in this competition that punches well above its actual sort of what would be ability in terms of...
They've been right on the brink, haven't they? The PSG were going home and hosed in the Bernabeu and let it go in the second half. Chelsea were 15 minutes away in the Bernabeu from knocking them out. And here they are still fighting, and that's why Pep Guardiola was so upset with the chances that were missed on... they didn't miss so many today anyway.
No,
He'd be happy with that.
They were on the canvas, weren't they, Real Madrid, a couple of times, but they get up. And that's the thing that Pep will fear most, that however well City play, however good they are in their football, however much possession they keep, they've got a dangerous, dangerous beast facing them that doesn't know how to give in and doesn't know when to stop and doesn't know how to call a day. And I think that's what's coming on Wednesday. And the reason I mention this game is that I think it will have a huge impact on City's mentality for the rest of the season. Because if they do go out of Europe on Wednesday, after having lost the final last year against Chelsea disappointingly, there will be a drain on Pep Guardiola, on his what he wants to achieve this season, what the players want to achieve. So it's a big week. We've got big weeks coming up all the time, I know, but this is a particularly big week.
What if they both get through?
If they both get through...
How will that affect the mentality of the run in the Premier League?
Martin, they are the best two teams in Europe and the world at this moment in time. So if they got through, it would cement that thought and position. Because they've just been outstanding for a few years. And actually, I think a Manchester City-Liverpool final, as much as I would hate it from where I come from and who I support, you can't take it away from them. They deserve it. They deserve to be going neck and neck for a Premier League title. They deserve to be going neck and neck in the FA Cup in the semi-final, and they deserve to be going neck and neck in the Champions League final. It would be fitting if they did. Liverpool, 7 games from a quadruple. 7 games from a quadruple. That is the closest I think that anybody will ever have been to a quadruple. I might be wrong. Someone will probably prove me wrong, but I can't think of a time where that would have been, so close to it. City, Pep Guardiola. I'm just watching him here on the screen doing an interview, and he had, I think, the greatest football team of all time at Barcelona. I've never seen a football team like that over a 3-4 year period. But he's doing it differently here. He is doing it differently. He hasn't got Messi, this phenomenon that existed in that team, and he probably wants to do it again. He needs to win that Champions League, and if Pep Guardiola could win the Champions League and the Premier League this season, it would be sensational. But if Liverpool were to do it, I mean, have to say that if they were to win the FA Cup as well, then that would be an
They've already won the League Cup.
Yeah, so the unprecedented achievement. So they are on the brink of greatness, these two teams, and what they're doing at this moment in time. I've been there in Premier League title races where you're going in the Champions League and you're in the FA Cup. And I've had seasons where it's been a success once, and I've had seasons where it's not been a success. It's damned hard work to keep it going at that level and to achieve the consistency and to come to places like this today and sort of go again, and every 3 days go again. But they're doing it, and well done to them.
I want to touch about set pieces. I know we mentioned Liam Cooper not playing and that there's maybe a lack of organisation, but the fact is, he works really hard, the Pep Guardiola, you're looking at your screen, and his coaching staff. They're inventive at their set pieces. They've got people who want to head the ball, and they've got the job done really here through 2 un-Manchester City sort of goals from what the fans think.
Yeah, and they've been good at set pieces all season. Leeds, on the other hand, have been poor defensively on them. And Leeds have been done here today by the 2 set pieces, really. I think that, the set third and fourth goals were towards the end of the game. But you've got to say that if the best teams find a way to win, and City have found a way to win today. And I have to say that when you're a great team, it doesn't matter how you win, you just have to win. It's inbuilt in you that you have to win. And they had some warning sides, Leeds. They had to give away 3 corners and free kicks previous to the 4th one that I think Foden had put in. They attack it well. They're not the biggest team in the world, Manchester City. They're not. But what they have is great delivery and speed of attacking. I always remember Sir Alex Ferguson saying, it doesn't really matter how big you are. If you've got a smaller player that gets across a bigger player and the delivery is good.
Diogo Jota.
Thiago Silva does it regularly where he attacks it really well. Cristiano Ronaldo, I know sometimes he can score goals that maybe can be hanging over the top of players, but more often than not, he gets across people. And he was absolutely insistent on that, on set pieces. We didn't practice attacking set pieces at United.
Never?
Very rare.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit under Carlos Queiroz, but very rare. And we certainly didn't stay out for 25 minutes on a Friday and do it. In fact, all you had, though, was great delivery. Say David Beckham was playing in that era. Wonderful delivery, pinpoint delivery, and players who were determined to run across defenders and try and get that little glance in it and that little touch in it. And he used to be insistent upon delivery being good, the runs across defenders, and filling the zones. And they were the three things he used to say. And if you do that and keep it that simple... Now, I know it's a lot more complex now because they do try different things and there's a lot more inventive free kicks. But that one from Foden today was just great delivery and getting across your man. And Rodri's done that. So, look, City do things well. They're professional. Liverpool do things well. They do the right things in all parts of the game, and that's why they are as great as they are.
Let's talk about Liverpool. We both watched the game before we came here, and he did tweak the team. He took a risk, and Pep Guardiola has done the same. Do you think that you come home winning 1-0 at Newcastle and you've done your job, when the opposition win 4-0, is that a bit of a punch in the solar plexus? Yeah,
I actually thought there was something in this game. Even at 2-0, with 15 minutes to go, I thought, this game, do you know why? It was the crowd. I just thought, if they get one goal here, Leeds, this will be absolute carnage in this ground. Because they were ready to go, weren't they, the Leeds fans? And that would have been awkward at the end for City. So you're right. I think Liverpool have every right to feel a little bit, not annoyed, but a little bit like... what do we have to do here? There is a little bit of that, but they're both putting each other under unbelievable pressure. And I don't know what to say about it, because every time we come to a game and think there might be something in it, they just do their jobs. They do the jobs.
And the depth of the squad. Both managers have had the difficult decision. When we talked about it after the last game, who was going to change? What was Jamie Carragher had strong views as to what Liverpool should or shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And there were definitely risks taken, but James Milner, man of the match. Naby Keita scored a crucial goal.
Martin, I've got, again, experience of this at United, and Sir Alex Ferguson used to rotate his squad a lot, more than any manager probably ever at the top level. 6 changes from an FA Cup semi-final from a Sunday to a Wednesday against Arsenal, and then multiple changes against Juventus in the following week, multiple changes on the Aston Villa game on the Saturday before that Juventus game, 4 and 5 and 6 changes. What Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola are doing today is they're basically empowering their squad. You hear managers sometimes, I've got a great squad, but have you got the guts and the courage to really use that squad in big matches where you need to win, where if you don't win, there is a large consequence. You're probably going to lose a league title, or you're going to get knocked out of a European Cup competition. So to do it and then come out of it and win, you've empowered everybody, you've made everybody feel part of it, and the strength in that squad and the commitment of everybody means that actually you start to blend into the feeling of every 3 days. Everyone's had a game. No one feels like there's a first 11. It's a real mistake to name your first 11 and always play that first 11, I think, in modern football, if you're going to go for 3 and 4 trophies, because you're going to need those 5 and 6 and 7 on the bench. And so to keep them included, to make them feel part of it, to get them on the pitch if you can, even if it's for 10, 15 minutes at the end. We saw Foden taken off today. It's really critical that you make everybody feel proud of being part of the squad, because there is absolute certainty there is going to come a game that will catch you out, and you're going to need 2 or 3 subs to come on and save you. That could be a defensive sub, it could be an attacking sub as well, more often than not. We had it in the Champions League final, where we had 2 subs come off the bench and win it for us. Liverpool have that in them, Manchester City have that in them, but you need to keep those players in form, confident, fit, part of it, energised, making them feel like they're contributing to the success, and it's not just a token gesture where you're being played in the sort of weak games. These are massive games here today. That are being played by the players that are on the pitch. And James Milner this morning at Newcastle and Jordan Henderson were out there for a reason. They've been here before. They've been round the block. They know what it's like up at Newcastle, and they know they have to contend with the crowd, a good team that Newcastle now are, and they know how to get through it. And that's why sometimes, again, harping back onto the times where, there were people who would get you through these games because of the character and their, Jurgen Klopp, for the first time, I don't know if it's the first time he's left out Mo Salah, it feels like, for an absolute age. But he must have felt that was a game that he could leave him out in. Why he thought that, we don't know. But I thought it was, right, what message does that send to the rest of the Liverpool players?
Well, they had Ruben Diaz, Diogo Jota and Sadio Mane.
No,
so
they did, but I just thought, because he's played Salah in every game, the game that he leaves Salah out in, I thought would be a risk, because it tells the rest of the players something that I just thought there was a risk there. When I saw the team come through, I thought that's a test for the other players because they know this guy's going to come straight back in against Villarreal. They know he's number one. So can we get through without him? So those Liverpool players come off today, getting through without him.
And they've got through without De Bruyne.
And they've got through without De Bruyne. And I think that's the two best players probably in each club.
The top two in the I asked you about the Football Writers poll.
I think the two top players in the club, Van Dijk, I'd have to say, probably competes with Salah, the importance. But generally, they're the two sort of star players. To come through those two games without the two star players, the rest of the squad feel $1 million and you've rested your two best players. So you're going into these games in Europe in midweek. Liverpool need a goal. And Manchester City need the performance of their life in the Bernabeu. And that man De Bruyne is the one who you know can be the difference. You know he can be the difference, and he needs to be fresh. He was brilliant the other night, wasn't he, in the game against Real Madrid? He was sensational. And then he's going to have to be that again on Wednesday. This is the moment. Kevin De Bruyne, always been respected, loved by everybody in the Premier League. He's a joy to watch. But to get to that next level of sort of win your team the Champions League, go and win in the Bernabeu, score the goal, set up the goal, put the performance in that everyone goes, yes, he is. We know he's world class, but then the world class with the success to go with it. And I think this is Kevin De Bruyne's moment. It is Kevin De Bruyne's moment, this. And Mo Salah will feel the same way. It's his moment to see Liverpool, all that talk of his contract, to see Liverpool home and win a quadruple. He feels he can take his team. So it's all to play for in this next couple of weeks. But the rotation of the squad presents itself as a risk. We think it's more interesting. But then actually out of it, both teams become stronger in terms of their, the other teams looking at it thinking, well, they've beaten Leeds and Newcastle today without the best players. So it's a struggle even though they know that. It's a struggle and they play at a high level and they get the job done without those players.
Before we move on to the other end of the table, Mo Salah has been voted by the Football Writers Association the Footballer of the Year.
Yeah.
Pipping De Bruyne by some margin. He was a pretty overwhelming choice. Would he have been your choice?
I think so, yes. I think he's not had the recognition globally that maybe he's deserved in this last few years. But he's been absolutely sensational. Even in that period when he wasn't scoring as many and he looked like he was struggling a little bit, the perseverance and being out there and being available every single game, never wincing, never thinking, oh, I'm not in good form, I'll come off, never sort of looking at a game that on paper you would think, well, does he fancy this? But there's none of that with Mo Salah. He's there every single minute of every single match. That consistency of appearing all the time and being a bit, and even today, being up there and being on the bench and sort of, it'd be easy to say, look, leave you at home this weekend, Mo, you have a rest. No, he's up there. He's travelled with the team, and
he nearly scored near the end, where the target rather caught up with him.
And I think I have to say that there's the professionalism element of Mo Salah along with the performance element. You put both together, and he's the outstanding player in the league this year.
We said Leeds needed a perfect performance and some luck. They didn't have any of those things, but they gave it a real go. But 4-0, the league table. Let's talk about Burnley's amazing result and sequence of results. But where does this place Leeds now? They've got Arsenal away. I kept saying it in commentary, Chelsea at home 3 days before the cup final. Yeah. My experience tells me that that's a game that's perhaps a little bit different in the context of the Chelsea performance. And then they've got Brighton and Brentford. So Brighton here and Brentford away. So what are their chances, do you think?
I've thought Leeds all season play like a team that could go down because of their recklessness and their sort of openness and their lack of ability to defend set pieces. I have to say that performance level today, even though they lost 4-0, was very different than the performances that we've seen this season where they've been battered 4-5 and 6-0. And we thought, what the hell was that? That was very different that today. They were playing against a great side, but that actually wasn't a 4-0 performance. That performance, I think, keeps them up. It's whether they get jittery, and I think that Everton's game tomorrow is big. If Everton win tomorrow, that really puts massive pressure on Leeds, and it's how these Leeds players handle it. the Leeds crowd, I mentioned them before. The reason I think they were like that then, because I think they responded to that performance there. They knew they'd put a real shift in, and it wasn't chaotic as we'd seen sort of previously, where they just looked like a mess. No, they were organised, and I think they were decent, and they didn't get that look, and they should have had that. They're a bit frantic in the final third, and they've got to sort the set pieces out, defending set pieces. They've got to stop conceding goals from defensive set pieces. Now, losing Cooper's a problem there.
And Dallas,
and Dallas as well. Oh, he looked like a bad one, didn't he? It looked like a shocker.
Yeah. That's
Burnley,
been the story of their season.
It has
for
been.
Leeds,
And
if they go down, I think everybody will say that's why it's happened. Bamford's hardly kicked a ball.
Yeah, they do the things that teams that go down do. They do concede goals from set pieces. They are frantic in the final third. They lack that little bit of composure. But I do think that performance, if they can put 4 of them in, it keeps them up. The problem they've got at the moment is that, we were informed. We were talking, weren't we, about for 5 minutes up here when we got here. And then I think Andy Townsend walked past us and said, Burnley had just scored 2. What?
Oh, yeah.
It shocked us. It was like, wow, we were sort of not switched off to it. We were just having a chat, as you would do before a game. It'd not flashed upon our screens.
I knew they were losing.
Yeah.
And therefore, that was good news for Leeds. And of course, part of our job is to set the scene as to what's happened. We had to wait for the Liverpool result and all the other results. But that one suddenly threw cold water in the face of Leeds United.
Oh, it shocked us, and it shocked Leeds United, and those Leeds fans will have responded to that and known about it as Leeds players would.
How's it happened? Sean Dyche's departure looked like, we've got to try something else.
It's interesting. Do you know, I know a couple of Burnley fans, and we were all horrified when Sean Dyche got sacked. We were all sort of like shocked. Maybe because we're not as close to the situation. I'm not as close to the situation sort of internally at Burnley, but Burnley fans weren't. They were sort of respectful of the fact the job that Sean had done. What an amazing job, and I think it's one of the great jobs in the Premier League to do what he's done. But actually, I think there was a feeling that maybe the change was needed to have any chance of staying up by a couple of Burnley fans that I spoke to, which actually, in some ways, not settled me down, but it made it feel like it wasn't as big a shock as actually, to be fair, it was on the ground in Burnley. And maybe that's probably the case. We've seen what's happened since. And
it's extraordinary what's happened
It's
since.
absolutely incredible. They've got spirit, Burnley. We've always known that. And Sean Dyche has put that into those players. And I don't think Sean Dyche getting sacked is anything other than the fact that, a manager who's been there so long. I played under a manager for so long. And the way in which he freshened it up was, one, he didn't have too much contact with us during the week. And he let his coaches, who were changed every 3 or 4 years. So you had Brian Kidd, then you had Steve McLaren, then you had Jim Ryan, then you had Carlos Queiroz, then you had Rennie Moulenstein. So you had 5 coaches in my 15 years at United. And those coaches weren't just, if you like, coaches with sort of minor voice. They were running the programme, the coaching programme, every single day. So you heard from Sir Alex in terms of sort of in detail, mainly only on match days. So he wasn't that same voice every day on the training ground, because he really did trust his sports scientists and his coaching staff to deliver the programme. I don't know how it is at Burnley with Sean Dyche, but if that same voice has been talking to you every day for a large number of years, there comes a point whereby probably, the manager's probably tired of talking to those players, and the players are tired of hearing from that manager, and it just felt like it was maybe a bit of that at the end at Burnley.
But there were familiar faces put in, obviously. Others left with Sean, but Ben Mee, who's an injured player, has had a voice in the dugout, and he's obviously been part of what's been a remarkable procedure. But they're not safe yet, but they've given themselves a real chance.
They've given themselves a real chance. I'm aware of Burnley's model in terms of, I think they do have a very strong incentive model on the players staying in the league, and they've always been committed. So I think you're always going to get a fight to the end. And from somewhere, they've just galvanised and they've brought it together. And that was a massive, massive moment. That was like a shockwave, like a tremor through the Premier League, that one, particularly at the bottom, because Jamie Carragher, I think, said this yesterday in one of his articles. That he didn't read the article, but I read the headline of it, and it said that...
You normally don't read the article.
Yeah. I pretty much know what he said when you read the headline, because I've heard it. But generally, he said something, I think, along the lines of, this is the biggest club that will ever go down out of the Premier League. And I think it actually is going to happen, because when I look at Leeds' performance today, I think Leeds are the type of team that could go down. I've thought that all season. When I look at Leeds' performance today, and I look at Everton's performances, and I look at Burnley's sort of momentum now, Everton are not playing as well, and they're not got that fight and that spirit that the others have. They've got some, they're not bad. I thought Anfield, they put up a bit of a show, but those players and that club will be absolutely in shock at what's happened today.
What do we make of Norwich going down, straight back down? Watford on the verge of straight up, straight back down. Is there something fundamentally wrong with the process? Is that the parachute payments helping them in the Championship? Or?
The parachute payments need to go. There does need to be a solution for it. You can't just take it out and then say, well, parachute payments are a huge issue in terms of that sort of that Championship, the problem it creates in the Championship, and the EFL are fighting to change the distribution model.
Well, Fulham are going back up again.
Yeah, they're fighting to change the parachute payments so that inequality doesn't exist. But I can also see it from a Premier League club point of view, that you go into the Premier League and to compete, you need to basically get contracts, you get players under contract. And the idea of getting good players under contract so that we have the league that we have and the competitiveness that we have, so that you can see a team at the bottom beat a team near the top, and we see these types of results happen during the season, is because you want those clubs to invest so that they can then basically compete and make it a competitive league. And we have that, and the parachute payments allow that. But the problem it causes further down the pyramid is too great. So we need another mechanism. Another mechanism won't be very popular for saying it, ex-PFA member, is the fact of basically cost reductions in contracts to a level which means it compensates to the level of the parachute payments. But then we're into sort of employment law, and the sort of PFA are all over that one like a rash in terms of salary caps or what would be contractual reductions, which, to be fair, most clubs have I think, contractual reductions. If you don't get in the Champions League at United, I had one in my contract.
But you're virtually saying that Burnley are staying up because maybe the players in their contracts don't. If they go down, they're going to lose money.
They will.
Let's fight for Premier League money, for Premier League wage.
I don't know.
It's like, actually, bonus for winning.
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but I would say it's probably between 20 and 40% reductions in contracts in those clubs in that bottom six. Now, that doesn't give them all the sort of what would be losses that they'll make in the Premier League. So, but by getting relegated, there's still that cliff edge that's severe for clubs that go down. So there needs to be something that's put in place where contractual reductions become mandatory for clubs that go down, so that then you can create a better merit system in the Championship, which doesn't create this cliff edge and this desperation to get in there, but also to stay in the Premier League when you get in. I've always said football, when you go down, will bring some economic disappointment. But mainly it should be sporting disappointment and fan disappointment. It shouldn't
not job losses.
Not job losses and panic.
Yeah.
And sort of what's going on. This, your world's fallen off a cliff edge. We shouldn't have that in the game. But we do need to retain the competitiveness of the Premier League. And I am at the heart of this in terms of what I feel about. I feel strongly about these things. It fits into what the regulator can do and the powers that regulator will have to be able to. Because I generally think that the Premier League owners, forget the top six, the ones that have got at risk of going down, and the good people in the game, in the EFL and in the FA, and they know what the problems are with the game. The problem is they're stuck. They can't get the solution. The sort of governance of the game doesn't allow them to be able to put the solution in place. They all know the problems. They all know the issues. They might all have different ways of tackling it, but they can't get anything through that's really fundamental. That, like I say, number one, maintains the competitiveness of the Premier League. We have the best league in the world. We've got the best exciting football, with the best teams in the world, the best investment in the world. We don't want to lose that. We have different teams winning the Premier League title. Might not be as many as we like, but you look at what's happening in Germany at the moment, and we don't want that. We do not want that. So, fact of the matter is, we have to maintain the competitiveness of the Premier League. That's the primary thought of everybody that wants, if you like, English football to succeed. But then there has to be a fairer distribution model, better fit and proper owners tests. We do need this parachute payment dealing with. We do need to do something with it, because Norwich and Watford, Fulham coming back up, Bournemouth coming back up as well.
They're close to it.
Yeah. So you're talking about basically this sort of like flip-flop between the leagues of the same teams. I know Premier League people will throw at you that that's not always been the case. I get that.
Now, we've had 50 different Premier League teams in 30 years.
And one of them's gone out of the league last week.
Yes.
In Oldham Athletic.
Yeah.
And Everton going out of the league will send shockwaves through football, I think. Because at Everton, you don't imagine with the investment that they've made, they can go out of the Premier League, but they are. And that's the jeopardy that exists in English football. That's the jeopardy that exists, that Everton Football Club can get relegated. Newcastle United can get relegated. Leeds United can get relegated.
Aston Villa got relegated.
Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest, Sheffield Wednesday, these great clubs that you think, well, when they're there, but they can get relegated. And other clubs can emerge. Chelsea can emerge to be one of the great clubs in Europe, and as can Manchester City through investment. So we've got this very, very competitive model in English football. So it's not a case of ripping everything up.
It's not undemocratic.
No,
but it's not the perfect democracy.
No, it's not. And what the top six are trying to do with the Champions League money with UEFA by trying to fix that in and lock the money in. Look, we need to act. I'm absolutely convinced football must act today, because it will go too far away where that top six will be set in stone. And we must never, ever. One of my clubs is in the top six. He's probably, in terms of revenues, we're in the top six in the world, top three in the world. But I want them to be able to be. I want them to be. I always felt that Blackburn, Leicester, Manchester City, Chelsea's emerging over the last 15, 20 years at different times. I've always wanted that. I've never wanted a league that's just set that it's Manchester United and Liverpool.
You don't want guarantees.
I don't.
And you don't want entitlement.
I don't. No, Martin, I absolutely don't. It's the absolute beauty of our system. And the problem we've got at this moment in time is that we're trying to be Americanized by American owners who don't get it. They don't get it. They've got franchise models over in America where there's no relegation. They don't understand it. They don't like it because their investment can go down. We've got different types of owners. We've got Tony Bloom at Brighton, who will invest money, but it's for reasons of passion for the place that he loves and the city that he and the football club that he loves. You've got then what would be credibility, validation, marketing play of sort of the nation states and Roman Abramovich and Saudi and sort of Abu Dhabi. And then you've got this American sort of what will be in flux, which we're going to have more, I think, at Chelsea.
It looks that way.
Which is an investment model where they want returns. And they will all cost, make sure that their investment is protected. I'm sorry. That's fine. Win in a sporting sense, but don't try and change the constitution. And they're trying to change the constitution. They tried to do it blazingly through Super League. They're now trying to do it through the back door, through what they're doing with the Champions League, and we've got to stop it. We've got to stop them. The 14 have got to pull together to stop the 6, because they will try and grab that Champions League, that UEFA money that's there, and they're doing it already. Without us knowing, they're doing it already, and we've got to stop that. Because it's really important that the integrity of the game, the meritocracy that we want in the game, that sort of democratic approach is there.
But it's a consequence. I agree 100% with what you're saying. But it's a consequence of the industry getting so popular, so successful, that only really rich people can invest in clubs. And they don't want to invest out of the love of the game.
No.
They want to invest to make money. So we've created an industry where you put the integrity of the game at risk, because people aren't going to settle for come here. I mean, Randy Lerner was probably the one who got stung a bit as an American, didn't he?
Yeah, the Liverpool owners that came and what were they called? Hicks
and
Gillette, whatever they're called. Yeah. No, there have been owners who've got stung. Football's always been owned by wealthy businessmen in this country. Going back, I think Manchester United, I think it was around early 1900s, was saved by a wealthy businessman like Mr. Davis, a local businessman. They needed money, they were going bankrupt. He put the money in, and Manchester United, the club that they are today. So local wealthy businessmen, rich businessmen have always, businessmen and women, or families, have always invested into football clubs. So that's our model. What we've now got, though, is other people buying the clubs for differing reasons than investing in their local club to not necessarily make money, but to make sure the community's there, that they support the club, they love the club. The Tony Bloom at Brighton, there are still sort of elements of that exist. What we've now got is obviously these nation states, these sort of wealthy people from different parts of the world, which that's fine. I've got no problem with it. I want that to happen. But what we now need is just to reset the governance so that we can basically keep them in the lane. And their powers are getting too great. And I ask the question to anybody who doesn't see the danger of it. Most do see the danger of it. How do we stop it? There are some that say pressure from government should be enough and football can reform itself. Well, okay, let's see it.
It's unlikely to happen.
It's unlikely to happen, Martin.
Because Turkey's voting for Christmas.
It's Turkey's voting for Christmas, and they haven't got it in them to do the right thing. They proved that with Super League. They proved that with Big Picture. They've proven that with other sort of decisions that they've made. They're now doing it in a sort of undercover scheming sort of way with UEFA and sort of Europe. They've got to be stopped and actually just kept in the lane. Simple as that. Simple as that, just kept in the lane. we want them to have the most money, the teams at the top, so we can see our teams compete brilliantly in the Champions League. We want every team in the Premier League to have enough money to make the league competitive. They're fundamentals. No one's looking to change that, but they're going above and beyond. And they're not the best people to run our game.
I genuinely think the public would like some other team to have the kind of money that the top six have, so that we get some. I mean, Leicester was an amazing achievement, one of the great achievements in 30 years of the Premier League, but that's come from foreign investment, but not massive foreign investment, and they picked the season where the other clubs looked in the other direction stupidly, and they paid a heavy price for it. But I don't subscribe to the view that it's like saying the FA Cup final should always be between Liverpool and Chelsea, that if you get to when Wigan win it, people are going, well, it's not very glamorous, is it? So the game has got a problem between celebrity glamour and what attracts. We know that in the television industry, what our bosses want, and reaching out to new generations, and a completely competitive football scene that even you grew up with. I certainly grew up with, but you grew up with, where teams had a chance from going, and you're trying to get a team through this wonderful pyramid that we have, but you can only get it so far. In the days gone by, the sky would have been the limit. We
can never take away the dream that Stockport County in the National League are top, or Grimsby or Chesterfield can go to the Premier League. We should never take away that path that basically exists, and that belief. What we've got to try and do is is find a distribution model that encourages people to do it with controls and real-time financial monitoring. I don't expect the Premier League to chuck a load of money down the system and allow the same things to happen in the Championship and League 1 and 2 that have happened before, which is overspending and clubs getting put under pressure. There needs to be money passed down, more money passed down. That gap needs to be shorter. That absolute huge gap that exists is too big. It's creating desperation, and it's not right. It's just creating desperation in the Premier League for the teams that are thinking they can go down. It's desperation in the Championship for teams that almost feel like they have to go up. It's all or nothing. I always remember Angus Kinnear doing an interview, the CEO here, during COVID, saying when Leeds were in the Championship and they were going to, if we don't go up this season, I don't know what we're going to do. That came out of his mouth. I'm like, Leeds United are going to be here for another 2,000 years, and you're telling me that you've gambled everything so that if you don't go up this year, I don't know what you're going to do. I'm like, that cannot be right. There's no way that Leeds United as a football club can just basically exist under that sort of premise. Every club should have the ability to go up. Every club should have the ability to invest, but we need stronger controls. And the Premier League do pass the money down. They need to pass more money down, and they need to put controls then in terms of the Championship and others, so that ultimately we don't end up with almost like this. The money goes down, and then basically they just spend more money on the players, and then all of a sudden we have the same problem because you've got the same levels of debt. No, that can't happen. It's got to come down so we have a more stable game whilst retaining the competitiveness. It can happen, by the way. It is possible. It's just we haven't got the governance structure in the game. The FA are powerless. The Premier League are stuck because they basically, the 14, the 6 are at odds with one another just generally over life at this moment in time with Super League and big picture. They've schemed behind each other's back. The executive haven't got the power really at this moment in time, or the strength. They're reactive rather than what would be visionary. They're not there to be. They can't pull it together. They can't bring people with them. They're getting pulled apart by sort of the leaders of these clubs. And it's a problem. We need to sort it. And I have to say, I was disappointed that I was happy with the fan-led review. I was happy with the fact that the government have endorsed it. I was unhappy that it's been delayed for 2 years. There is a lot of damage potentially could be done in 2 years.
Let's leave it with one thought.
Yeah.
One thought. What you've said. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, we have to make it happen. That's what we've been fighting for 2 years, because, I always say, who do you want running the game in this country? My view would be the perfect governor of football in this country would be an empowered, modernised FA. But that's not going to happen without an independent regulator with a job over a 3-year, 5-year period, being empowered with controls to reset the governance structure within this country and give the power back to the FA. We can't just think that the Premier League are going to basically make that choice and give all the powers that really matter. It is the distribution, it is the fit, it is all the things that really, the structure of the league, the distribution of the monies, the controls in place, the real-time financial monitoring. It needs to be one thread all the way through the game. There are 4 different financial funding rules for each of the leagues. every league, League Two, League One, Championship, and the Premier League are under different rules when it comes to funding and what owners are allowed to do. I mean, how can that be? It should be one game. And they've all got different. They've all got different campaigns to tackle racism. We've got Kick It Out. We've got Show Racism the Red Card. We've got
room for racism.
No room for racism. We've got Black Lives Matter, and all the leagues or all the organisations have their own. Can we not have one between? Can you not come together, sit in a room, and say, right, let's tackle this together? They can't. They're all basically disconnected.
Or they can't, or they won't.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I have to say, it feels to me the most simple thing in the world. Because actually, you get 5 organisations, 5 people in a room, 5 CEOs in a room, and say, right, should we create one coordinated programme for tackling racism in this country and in discrimination? Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Should we all come behind one message? Should we all fund one programme, one No, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll do 5 different things. That's what happens, and it's symptomatic of what the game is. Vested interest, self-interest, mixed with some greed, and it just needs to be brought back.
To be continued. Gary, thank you.
Thank you.